We've all been there. You just got crushed at chess. Maybe you tried it with your grandpa and he stomped you. So you're making the decision that now you're gonna beat him. And you're here. So what's up? Why is this game so hard? That's probably because there are more possible games of chess than atoms in the universe. Yeah, you can think of every person, every animal, building, moon, star, planet, galaxy, add up all their little particles together, and there are still more unique games of chess than there are of those particles. Another way to think about it is you could sit down for the rest of your life, your kids' lives, and your grandkids' lives and play chess, do nothing but play chess, and you still will not have seen every single game. You won't have even seen 1% of all the games. Now, with that said, only a fraction of those possible games are realistic positions. It's still pretty wild to think about though. Now, chess requires no technology, yet it still holds all that complexity, and it's been around for centuries, with very few changes. I think we can all agree that chess is the best board game out there. But it is difficult, there's no question about that. So how could anyone hope to be good at it? And why should you play? Well, remember what I said a second ago about all the different possibilities, which is that number, in case you're curious. That means every time you play, you and your opponent are the only two people who've probably ever seen that game play out. And that's pretty cool. And as with a lot of things, the mystery is what makes it fun. Everyone that's not a child prodigy starts out just as lost as you. Don't believe me? The most well-known chess YouTuber, Gotham Chess, who's been playing his whole life and has taught hundreds of people, has this to say about it.
Adults are terrible learners. We are such bad learners because we all have egos. We have a real inability to fail. Because everything we do in life, we can't, even in school, we couldn't fail a quarter of the time. That's a 75% score. You wouldn't get into any good school, etc. In chess, you fail 45 to 55% of the time. Nobody wants to do an activity like that.
And for those of us that want to spend a lot of time on chess, it's kind of like a journey, because you definitely won't get good overnight. So what kind of things can we expect on this journey? Or rather, how can we get good at it? And how do we actually understand it? Well, not to insult anyone's intelligence here, but I'm going to get started by playing it safe and assuming you've never seen a chessboard, don't know how any of the pieces move, and don't know what any of them are worth. So here we go. Pawns worth 1 point can only move forward, and on their first move they can move 2 squares. Everything after that they only move 1 square. However, they can only capture diagonally. So this is legal, whereas this is not legal. Knights worth 3 points can move 2 squares in any one direction, and then 1 square perpendicular to that, kind of like making an L shape. Bishops worth 3 points can move as many squares in any direction as they want on the diagonals. Rooks worth 5 points can move as many squares as they like on the straightaways, otherwise known as the ranks and files. Our beloved queen, worth 9 whopping points, can move as many squares as she likes on the straightaways and the diagonals. So she's very powerful, but you only get one of them, and the only piece movement she cannot imitate is the knight's, which means the knight is the only piece that can see the queen while the queen cannot see it. Lastly, the king. He has no set value because if you lose him, the game is over, and he can move 1 square in any direction, however he cannot put himself in check. So something like this would be illegal. Great, we know how all the pieces move, so what's next? Since nobody can or ever will remember all the possible combinations of moves, we rely on some assistance to get better. One method is to remember some openings. Another method is to rely on some guiding principles. The more natural and the more fun of the two approaches is to learn some guiding principles, because that way is a lot more flexible and it's not as tedious. A very select few of these guiding principles are to get pawns into the center of the board to go ahead and assert control early. That makes this a very good starting move and this a very bad one. Next, look for forks. A fork is when one piece attacks 2 other pieces at the same time, and those 2 pieces being attacked can't attack the piece that's doing the fork. So it's easier if I just show an example. In an earlier clip, I showed a knight forking a king and a queen, this right here. However, in this clip, the knight isn't really forking anything because our knight can just take it. And any piece can fork, even a pawn. Here, a pawn forks a knight and a bishop. No matter what the opponent does, they will lose a piece. If they take with the bishop, the other pawn just takes back. and if they move a piece away, the pawn takes the remaining piece. Next, in most cases, you want to take with the piece of lowest value. So here, a queen and a bishop can take, but you probably want to take with the bishop to keep your queen safe. Next, keep your knights off the edge of the board. This one is really dependent on the exact game you're playing. It's kind of hard to understand, but as a general rule of thumb, just keep your knights in the center of the board. Don't trade queens when you're down material. Here, we can trade queens, but since our opponent has one more pawn than us, we probably don't want to.
Without your queen, it's a lot harder to come back from a disadvantage.
Next, don't play too quickly. Here, there's a queen that's hanging, which means the queen's free for the taking. But if we look a little bit deeper, this move wins on the spot, and that's checkmate. Once we get a little bit better, we can start exploring opening theory. That's a little bit outside the scope of what we're talking about today, but in short, theory is just a set of proven moves that will get you an advantage. These moves are proven by grandmasters, which are the best players in the game, and chess engines, which are robots that can analyze millions of positions a second. So theoretical play is proven to yield some sort of advantage when played correctly. Hey, now we have a little solid foundation. We went over some cool knowledge, what all the pieces do, how much they're worth, some terminology, and some strategy. So right now, you might be coming to the conclusion that chess is just some tedious memory game, and no one could fault you for thinking that, because playing chess well does rely a lot on memory. But it is a little bit more than that. At the end of the day, it really is fun to fumble around the board like toddlers in a wave pool with someone that knows just as little as you do. And on the other hand, if you're more competitive, it's important to remember that there is a human on the other side of the board, and like you, they want to win. So you can think about all these tips as climbing into their mind and predicting what they want, and then swiping it out from underneath them. Bobby Fischer, a former world chess champion, said that his greatest pleasure in chess was to break his opponent's ego. And you too can break egos if you want it bad enough. So thanks for watching. I hope these basic skills showed you that chess isn't as scary as it looks. It just takes some practice. And you should probably get in some practice before you forget all this.